I think when a diagnosis is rare, that word rare just exasperates the
Yeah.
fear surrounding it because there's so much unknown. We had so much to learn. And so we were shocked, we were grief filled, and we were fearful of all of this unknown. It was a really difficult couple of months. And yet there was no time to process those feelings. Our son needed so much. We had to get a care team in place. We had to get medical equipment. We had so much to do. So we dove in right away. Fears aside, grief aside, all of those feelings aside, just dive in and get him what he needs.
I saw it at the hand washing station at the entrance of the NICU. I see it in the playroom during medical play bingo. I see it near the fish tank in the surgery waiting room. There is a powerful unspoken language between two parents who have never met, but know in their deepest soul what the inside of a children's hospital feels like. It is joy and it is grief. It is love and it is fear. It is miracles and it is loss. This podcast exists to tell these stories. I'm Katie Taylor, a very proud child life specialist, and it is my honor to be your host of Inside the Children's Hospital. Hello, my friends. My name is Katie Taylor. I am a certified child life specialist and so happy to be with you on the podcast today. We're going to be talking with Nikki McIntosh. She is a mom of two, a former marketing executive, and the founder of Rare Mamas. Her story begins in a children's hospital exam room where she was seeking answers about her son's Miles' experiences. He was about 18 months old, and she just knew that something wasn't right. He wasn't bearing weight, he wasn't pulling to stand, and then she had an older child, so she was understanding that he wasn't meeting his milestones like she thought he should have. He ended up following a long series of medical tests, ultimately got a diagnosis of spinal muscular atrophy, a rare neuromuscular disease. In our episode today, we talk about what it feels like to be dismissed as a parent in the hospital. We talk about how she ended up becoming her child's advocate in collaboration with the care team. We really go in depth about the EMG procedure that he had to go through as just a young toddler and how she actually supported her son through that before she even knew what a child life specialist was. And we also talk about the complexity of actually having the answers and feeling validated about what you think is happening, but then having your world crash down because you are right and your world is changed forever. You're going to have to stay tuned for the whole story because it is an amazing story of hope. Like she said at the beginning, they were told that there was no cure, there was no treatment. And so she explains on how that's all changed over the past years, and now her son can get treatment. Okay, that's all I'm going to say, but let's go ahead and dive in.
I'm Nikki McIntosh, and I have been married to my husband, Tony, for 20 years, which is crazy to say, 20 years this year. We have two boys, Mason, who is 15, and Miles, who is 13. And when we live in Southern California, and when Miles was about 18 months old, he was diagnosed with a rare neuromuscular disease called spinal muscular atrophy, or SMA for short.
And tell me a little bit about you, Nikki, kind of leading up into the time before you got married, any kind of passions or anything just about you.
My career was in marketing and advertising. I worked in that for
Okay.
18 years. I'm from Chicago originally, so I came from Chicago to Southern California. I spent some time in Chicago doing improv on the stages of Second City. That's kind of a little known fact. So
Wait,
I
that's
love,
so cool.
yeah, I love improv. I love comedy. So that was a really fun time, exciting time of life. And yeah, and then I loved working in advertising and marketing. My last job was at a magazine before I stopped working to take care of my son full time. So
Yeah.
that was life before.
Yeah, there is for sure like a life before and a life after a diagnosis day, that D-Day that so
Yes.
many parents talk about. I love that. So do you still use humor in your life now in comedy? Do
Oh my
you
goodness, that's what gets
Yeah?
me through. It's what gets me through for sure. And I
Okay.
feel like there were times I've almost lost it. And
Yeah.
no, 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 I cannot lose my sense of humor. I need that to survive.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. It's because some of the things we talk about and we experience in life are really serious. And it's like, wait, I want to give that the attention and the seriousness that it
Yes,
deserves. And is it okay to laugh? And is it
yes.
okay to joke around? And what will other people perceive and what does that bring to me? There's a whole lot of stuff that we could talk about there.
I always say, when I use humor, it's not used to make light of the situation, or it's not to, um, belittle a situation, but it's basically a tool to get through the situation.
Yeah, yeah. We actually we have a child life online community, and we have different community continuing education that we do. And one of the ones we had last month was all about using humor at the end of life,
Mm,
specifically with some teens that just love to laugh and make TikToks and do silly things and like leave some legacy items that would make their family laugh
oh,
afterward. And it was
what a
really
joy.
it was a beautiful lesson to learn
Yes.
about how those 2 complex things can live together. Okay, I digress. Enough. Tell me about you, Nikki. Tell me kind of about the experience of finding out that something was going on, maybe those gut feelings or those initial milestones. What was happening at the beginning of your journey?
Yeah, so Miles was hitting all of his milestones until it came time to stand and take those first steps. And since we had an older son, we knew what those precursors to walking were. We knew when they should take place. And so when Miles wasn't pulling to stand, we noticed there was this inability to bear weight on his legs. So that's when we started asking questions. This is before about 1 years old, and started asking questions, and we're being dismissed, to be quite honest. And so there was a point we decided, we're not going to wait any longer. We want some answers. And then we started down the road of testing and working with a neurologist.
Yeah. I feel like I hear this a lot that there's some dismission. What's the word? Being dismissed at the
Yeah.
beginning.
Hmm.
And it makes sense in a lot of ways, right? Because they're probably getting a lot of pediatricians and doctors are getting a lot of these fears and concerns all the time, and it's
Yes.
hard to weigh it. But then you hear, no, it did lead to a diagnosis. So what did being dismissed feel like? And then how did you take the steps after that to say, no, I need to continue listening to my gut?
Being dismissed felt very frustrating. And like you mentioned, unfortunately, this is all too common. It's what a lot of us go through. But it was it really frustrated me. It brought out all of those kind of mama bear instincts of me wanting to protect and defend my child. And it was not good enough. Being dismissed was like, no, this is not good enough. My child deserves to be seen, and we need answers. So I think that was the point that I realized I was going to have to become the advocate that I have over time
Yeah.
become. I think that was the very first point when I realized, okay, this is on me as a parent to really
Yeah.
speak on my child's behalf, to seek out the best for him. And that's kind of where it all started. And then I found my voice through that, through that first being dismissed. It led me to finding my voice.
Yeah, I feel like there can kind of be that safety net expectation at the beginning of like, oh, they're the doctors and the
Hmm.
nurses. They're going to take care of us.
Yes,
But no, it turns out you're the driver of the bus.
that's exactly it.
And
I
you're
think
the one who's going to make sure appointments are made and the specialist is follow up and like all of those different things.
yes, that was really eye opening to me. And I think that, I do think specialists are doing their best, but there are a lot of patients. And like you said, sometimes, I'm sure they get a lot of worries and fears from all different parents. And so it's hard to discern.
Yeah.
And so in that regard, that's where we come in as parents when we can really speak on our child's behalf.
So you get him in front of the care team that you want him in front of. And who's the first kind of doctor? Or what's the first experience where somebody says, okay, let's do some testing?
We had a brilliant neurologist, thankfully, and she was able to see within 20 minutes of that first appointment that something was going on, and she affirmed our thoughts. She said, "You were so right to bring him, and we're going to start looking. There's something's definitely going on. He wants to bear weight. He wants to get up. The brain is saying, what knows what to do and wants to do it, but something is not allowing him to do it. So let's start testing. And that felt, oh gosh, that felt such that confirmation from a specialist felt like we're so grateful that we listened to our gut, and we kind of were those advocates, and we followed those feelings. And so then we started on the road of testing.
Did you also find kind of like that catch-22 of like, "Oh, I hope they were gonna say this is all in our head,"
Oh, of course. Oh my
and
goodness.
everything?
Yes.
Isn't it interesting how both those things, it's like relief and validation, like, "No,
Yes.
wait, I was hoping you were gonna say I
Yeah.
was just dreaming all of this up."
Yes. I mean, it's not the answer we wanted to hear,
Yeah.
but we were thankful that there was perhaps a reason, right?
Mhm.
And so, yes, it was like that. Those dual feelings. It's the worst thing that you want to hear, but it also feels like, okay, we're gonna get to answers at least. We're gonna be able to do something about it if we have an understanding of why this is going on. At least we can get to answers, and that can
Yeah.
help us help our son.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I hear you saying is it's okay to have both of those feeling and for it to
Hmm.
take time to get to
Yes,
the one where you're like, "Let's move forward."
exactly.
How did you handle those first few medical experiences? Because it can be really upsetting to see your not upsetting, it can be hard, it can be challenging to see your child have to go through uncomfortable or painful tests and diagnostic tests, and how did you handle that, and was that a new experience for you?
It was a new experience for us. It was gut-wrenching, as a parent, you don't wanna see your child endure any pain. You're putting them through testing and procedures, it's uncomfortable, some of them are painful, but yet it's so critical, to
Yeah,
the bigger picture, and so that was really there was a big learning curve in that. You're there, you're trying to comfort your child, and you're also trying to take in really difficult information at the same time. You're trying to be strong for your child, to not show any fear in your eyes for your child, but yet you have, fear and your stomach is in knots. So it's that you're trying to be the protector, putting your own feelings to the side to benefit your child. It was a big learning curve.
what did comforting him look like? What helped?
I remember I had this little song on my phone at the time, this little light of mine, and I remember playing that over and over through the appointment. I probably, if I played that right now, it probably would bring me to tears because that
Yeah,
moment is so vivid in my mind of just trying to stay light and stay comforting and, stay positive, all while he's crying through one of the procedures when
yeah.
he was getting pinpricks in his leg and for an EMG. I can remember that so vividly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, if you don't mind going back to that EMG experience, I think it can be really helpful for parents who are also supporting their child through it. What was that diagnostic test like? And yeah, can you walk us through that?
Yeah, that test ultimately led to answers because that was the first time they identified an abnormality. Wasn't the first test we did. This was about 6 months in, different testing, MRIs, blood draws, various things. But it was that specific test that led to an answer, and the first time we found an abnormality. And so that looked like, sitting in the clinic, the doctor's office, and them using, like I said, a machine, EMG, electromyography, to do little pinpricks, needles into his thigh, I believe it was. And that's he had to, it was not long term painful, but at the time
Yeah.
he was um, less than 18 months old. So he was a little guy, and so he
Yeah.
was getting pricked, multiple times, crying through the procedure. And like I said, I'm there trying to play a song and distract him. It looked like a lot of distraction at that point, right? When they're
Right.
young and just trying to do something else so that they're not focused on a needle going in and watching it.
Yeah.
So I think the art of distraction became a really vital tool for us in a lot of different circumstances. And so I think what's helpful is to find what that is for your child. What can distract their attention? So whatever that may be for your specific child, it's helpful to know that so that you can use that as a tool in different settings.
I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that part. As a child life specialist, we do a good bit of distraction, especially in
Hmm.
those early years. And we really call it like that alternative focus to looking at something else beyond what's happening. And that
Yes.
doesn't mean that we're not supporting them and acknowledging that it's happening and that it's hard, but it really can help, whether it's singing a song or it's finding Miss Rachel. Now is probably what everybody watches.
Yeah.
And, just the different things that are like, oh, I can focus on something else
Yes.
beyond what's really difficult. And in that moment, then the parent, you get to be the facilitator of that alternative focus, which can be really powerful for you to have a job to do.
Yes, it did. It gave me something to do. And we're always choosing what's age appropriate at the time, right? So at
Yeah.
that point, that's not a lot of reasoning that could go into a child at that age, and
Yes.
explaining things, right? So the art of distraction seemed like what was best for that age, that age that he was at the time. And then finding something that I knew specifically that he liked, which was music, and it actually had a little video to it too. So there was a sensory, there was a video, there was
Yeah.
auditory, visual. So that was what worked for him at the time. And so just employing that because I knew it would distract him.
You're hired as a child life specialist. You've got it. You've
Well,
got
we've
it
all
for
had to wear
sure.
these different hats at
You
various times,
have.
right? And
You
I
have
think I've
worn
learned from some very good child life specialists that have been really, really great teachers to us. So, yeah.
you're the perfect example of parents know best and you have the insight about what works. For him, you're a unique son, and that we can come in with a bag full of tricks, but mom and dad are gonna know what's gonna work best, and we can try a few things based on their recommendation.
Yeah, I think that's why if we're partners together, then we can
Mm.
figure it out, right? We've partnered with our child life specialists, our providers. We can figure it out to us together, us bringing what we know of our child, and then you bringing all the tactics and from all your years of experience and all the learning you've done. And we're pretty powerful partners in this.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what your son deserves, and any child who goes through that medical care. So, I hate to fast forward, but you eventually get the diagnosis, and can you walk us through what that phone call was like, or how did you end up finding out?
Yes, we found out it was a phone call, and it confirmed what our then neurologist uh, had suspected. We found out later that she had suspected it. She was very talented, but had to go through the various steps. And genetic testing was ordered after that abnormality was detected in the EMG. The genetic test was ordered. That was what confirmed that genetic diagnosis of SMA. We got the call, and I actually had looked up SMA prior to that. And so I was really hoping it wasn't that because it's a pretty severe diagnosis. And so we fell apart. We fell apart when we received that diagnosis. The world just kind of went, I would say, gray at that time. And we were in shock. It was shocking because it was something we never heard of. No one in our family had ever had it. And
Yeah.
yet it's a genetic diagnosis. This was lurking in our genes. And then to learn the severity of it was so difficult. Um, and so we just were in a state of shock and then deep grief, just really profound grief and sadness for what this might mean for our son. And we had a lot to learn. So there was a lot of fear surrounding it as well. And I think when a diagnosis is rare, that word rare just exasperates the
Yeah.
fear surrounding it because there's so much unknown. We had so much to learn. And so we were shocked, we were grief filled, and we were fearful of all of this unknown. It was a really difficult couple of months. And yet there was no time to process those feelings. Our son needed so much. We had to get a care team in place. We had to get medical equipment. We had so much to do. So we dove in right away. Fears aside, grief aside, all of those feelings aside, just dive in and get him what he needs.
And now a word from our amazing sponsors. We're so grateful to have Paineys Instant Topical Anesthetic Spray as our sponsor of today's podcast. Help control pediatric procedural pain associated with needle procedures and minor surgical procedures while improving patient satisfaction. Paineys Instant Topical Anesthetic Spray works immediately. It is a non-drug and non-flammable topical spray that can be used to temporarily relieve the pain associated with minor surgical procedures and needle procedures. Pain Ease is a medical device and does not contain medication. It can be a safe and effective alternative for lidocaine injections when used to temporarily control pain associated with immunizations, IV starts, blood draws, foreign body removals, and suturing or suture removal, to name a few. Pain Ease works on a 3-step process. First, prepare the site and equipment for the procedure per your facility's protocol. Second, apply Pain Ease by spraying about a can's distance away for 4 to 10 seconds or until the skin begins turning white. Finally, perform the procedure. The anesthetic effect of Pain Ease lasts about 1 minute and can be reapplied as many times as necessary. Refer to application instructions for full details. Important risk and safety information. Consult your pediatrician when using on children 4 years old and younger. Do not use on large areas of damaged skin, puncture wounds, animal bites, or serious wounds. Do not spray in eyes. Overspraying may cause frostbite. Freezing may alter skin pigmentation. Use caution when using product on persons with poor circulation. Apply only to intact oral mucous membranes. Do not use on genital mucous membranes. The thawing process may be painful and freezing may lower resistance to infection and delay healing. If skin irritation develops, discontinue use. Caution: federal law restricts this device to sale by or on the order of a licensed healthcare practitioner. Studies suggest that Pain Ease does not induce vasoconstriction, does not contaminate a site that has been cleansed, and is preferred by patients and practitioners. Pain Ease comes in 2 different spray pattern variations, medium stream and mist. It is also available in 2 sizes, 3.9 ounces or 1 ounce single patient. Gebauer appreciates the care and comfort that you provide to pediatric patients. Visit gebauer.com/Pain Ease with no space to learn how Pain Ease can make visits more comfortable. Yeah, it's like you don't even get the opportunity for fight or flight. You just have to do fight. You
Yep.
just have to keep moving forward.
Yep. It was a fight right away, and we dove in head first.
I'm thinking about that beginning kind of diagnosis period and no chance really for you to be able to take care of yourself. You have another
Mm.
son at home. It's just, it truly is impossible. When do you feel like you first, and I don't want to say this the wrong way, but when do you think you first, after the diagnosis, were actually able to take a breath?
You probably don't want to hear
Have
the
you?
answer to
No,
that. The
I
true
really
answer,
do. I really do.
for me, and this might be a personality thing, but it didn't feel like I could take a breath until I had everything in place for Miles. That was my priority, and my other son was my priority as well. They both were. My care really did take a back seat. Now I've learned years later that that's not the best method to choose, and I try and choose, a different angle now that I'm a little bit savvier. But at the beginning, it felt like, um, the what was most pressing was saving my son's life. And so that looked like just getting all of his care team in place, like I was saying, getting all those therapies in place, getting all of his medical equipment in place, getting what he needed at school in place. So it was years, I think, until I felt like that was all in place that I could really take a breath. Not smart, wouldn't do that again and would never recommend it, but that's the truth about how I handled it. And that I can look back now and see that, that wasn't necessarily the best, but I was desperate to save my son.
Absolutely. And in saving your son, you're saving yourself in some ways. I see that,
Yep.
right? When you're like putting everything in place, there is this like, okay, I'm doing what I can. And
Yeah.
that actually does feel like I'm taken care of because I'm taking care of my son. I can see that.
That is so true. And I think that's why I said perhaps it was a personality thing for me because that it was a place to put all of that angst and sadness and confusion. It looked like action for me. That was kind of my coping mechanism. That helped me kind of take back what I felt like my power because it felt like I was so powerless in this situation. I would felt so helpless in this situation. So that felt like a proactive place to put all of those feelings into action because it felt like I could then um, be doing something positive and proactive to help my son. And in doing that, I think it did help me cope as well.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And I feel like it's that reframe because right now, like the buzzword is self care and how do you care for yourself? And sometimes you just can't. It's just, you can't barely take a shower, barely brush your teeth, truly trying to put one foot in front of the other.
So
But
true.
that action can feel good and can be a positive coping
Yes.
method in some
Yes.
ways.
For sure. And, in doing so, you end up meeting a lot of, I would say, like-minded people. We also put it into advocacy for our son's specific diagnosis. And that felt also like a positive place to put it. And we met other people doing the same. And then we're being surrounded by a community of like-minded people, all putting all of those emotions into something positive, into something forward thinking. And so then we're being surrounded by others who are also helping us cope.
You've written this book that I want you to share about and tell us, but who did you write the book for?
I wrote it for the mother whose child was newly diagnosed. I can look back and recall that time so vividly, like we talked about. And at the time, it was so overwhelming in so many ways, emotionally, physically, mentally. And I want to save that mom time. Going through my journey, I learned so much. And as we all do over time, we learn it. We figure out how to take care of our kids. We figure out how to advocate. We grow and we rise to this call. But the beginning, when it's all new and you are just, desperate to save or help your child, sure would save you a lot of time if you could figure out these things that help right away. And so that's who I wrote it for. That mom who's new on the journey, who needs to understand all the different aspects, navigate all the different systems, figure out where the supports lie. I wrote it for her. And it's been just such a meaningful and beautiful part of my journey. And I truly hope it can help that mom.
Absolutely. Are you able to meet with other moms at the beginning of their journey and mentor them, kind of like you're doing in that book? Do you get to do that in real life? I see you on your online presence, teaching a lot, sharing a lot about what you go through. What are those relationships like for you now?
That is how this started basically, is that I was
Mm,
sharing the information I learned with moms I would meet at doctor's appointments and waiting rooms, at
yeah.
my kids' therapy appointments. And so in my community, basically. And so I would start sharing, hey, I've finally figured this out. Here's how to do it. And thankfully people started saying, you should talk to Nikki. She knows, she went through that. She figured it out. And it just gave everything I went through meaning, to be able to know that even though I bumped up against all those obstacles and it may have taken me 3 years to figure it out, but by sharing it, I could save that next mom time. Um, and so it was just so meaningful to me to be able to do that. And now I can do that on a regular basis. And I love meeting other moms, and the relationships that we have, bonds form so quickly and go so deep because we understand each other. And so they've really enriched my life.
One of the other things you wrote to me at the beginning when before this interview was one of the unexpected moments was the bond that you had with your son, Miles, and that it is unlike any other connection you've ever had. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think, you hear so many things about how this can change relationships, right? How these diagnoses can change relationships. And I think what we don't often hear about is how it can strengthen relationships. And this bond that my son and I had formed, I hoped, right? When you have children, I think you hope and you pray for
Yeah.
the relationship that you want to build with them, right? And then you get a diagnosis and you wonder how is that going to change it? How is that going to lessen it? And in fact, I would say it's deepened our bond because we go through so many hard things together. We drive to these appointments, these filled with fear and trepidation, and we have to sit and hold each other's hands through these procedures. And there is just a trust, a deep trust that forms because of that. And so there's so many unsaid things between my son and I, but it's a look, and it's a, I
Yeah.
got you, and it's just so beautiful. It chokes me up just talking about it because
Y-
it's
Yeah.
it's something I never imagined, but it's so much deeper and more meaningful than I ever thought it could be.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I want to ask you one of my favorite questions just because we're on that track now, but what are some of your favorite parts about being Miles' mom?
Well, he is a little whippersnapper, I would tell you, and, and we we have a lot of similar personality traits. So I I just love how feisty he is and how determined he is and how he never stops trying. He has a disease that changes his abilities um and yet he keeps on trying. He always tries new things. And so he surprises us all the time with something he does that he decided to try again. And so there's so much learning from him. I love so many things about him. It's hard to put my finger on one.
It's the hardest question I ask for sure.
um, but he just is a fighter. He's a fighter in every sense of the word. His spirit, and so he really keeps me going, and he keeps me on my toes. It's never dull with him.
I love that. I can see you both in each other as you describe him. I'm curious about kind of the therapeutic process of writing this book. And I think it does take some distance from diagnosis day to be able to, sit down and write. Not only just like the time that it takes to write, but also the space to reflect and really leave that message. How long did it take you to write this book? What did you enjoy the most? What was your method in writing it?
I have actually loved the writing process, which was
Yeah.
so surprising. I never had a goal to write a book. Uh, I This became a book. Like I said, I started writing down and sharing what I wish I would have known when Miles was newly diagnosed, and started sharing it with other mothers. And at some point, I said, I think this is a book. Um, and then I've been on a mission to write it, and I wrote it actually a long time ago. So it was
Wow.
written over time, but it's been written for a while. And the writing process was such a beautiful gift to me, which I didn't
Yeah.
expect. I wrote it during the early morning hours before my kids woke up. That's the only time I had. So I would wake up a couple hours before my kids woke up, and it would be that time just by myself. And as you mentioned, time to process, time to
Yeah.
heal, time to look back and go, wow, we have been through a lot. And here we are. We're still standing, we're still doing it. I'm proud of us. And so the writing process has really been a beautiful gift to me. I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Wow, that's amazing. I recently started journaling and I think it's changed my life. Not to be like so dramatic, but I've never before sat down and given myself time and space to process. And there's this one quote that was like, how do you know what you think or feel if you don't take the time to write it down? And I was like, oh, that actually really resonates now that I'm writing it down. I didn't know half the things that come out of me when I'm writing something.
It is true. I think it's a way to process, and that processing is so important because that's where you glean all the good stuff, right? When you're moving so fast on a daily basis and you don't get time to reflect, then you can't really pull out all the nuggets and all the truths and all the learnings. So I think by writing it down and processing it, that's where you find all the glimpses of the goodness right there, and all the things you can take away and then use in the future.
What are some of your favorite resources to recommend to other parents or that you use yourself?
I really do think it's important to plug into the organizations, the bigger organizations. For example, my son has a rare disease, and there's some amazing rare disease umbrella organizations, such as National Organization for Rare Disorders, NORD, and Global Genes. Those are a couple of the big ones. We plugged into our specific patient advocacy group called Cure SMA for spinal muscular atrophy. So plugging into those resources, those organizations, they provide not only a wealth of knowledge and information, but also access to the community of other people who understand. And that is going to be so fueling for anybody navigating a diagnosis for their child.
Well, I have just enjoyed meeting you and hearing about Miles and you. I'm so grateful that you chose to start sharing your story with other parents in the waiting room and eventually here in your book and on this podcast. Are there any other nuggets that you want to share with parents? And let's talk specifically about navigating the healthcare medical part of it. Anything else that we didn't chat about that you're like, this was a good hack, or this was something that I had to learn over time, but I want to share with you?
I would say that to really be a collaborative member of that team, come in. armed with information, if you can, uh, when you're at home, track information about your child. So maybe you're tracking symptoms, maybe you're tracking responses to different medication that you're trying, maybe you're tracking behaviors, whatever it may be. If you can do your own kind of observation and tracking and come in with that information and share that with your medical providers, I really feel like you can fill in the gaps of information. They can't be there with you, obviously, with your child all the time to see everything that their child is going through. And if you wait to that appointment to share some of this, I mean, Murphy's Law, those symptoms are not going
Yeah,
to show up on that day. That's just how it
that's the way
goes.
it goes.
um, so if you can record video or, track
Mm,
information in a really factual, way, this happened on this date, it lasted for this long, then you're becoming a partner and you're bringing in really crucial information. And that opens up conversations and that leads to further dialogue with your team. And so I think that's a way that you can really be a collaborative, informed member of the team. And that is really going to just serve your child in the long run.
yeah, I love that word collaboration, and I don't think it can be overused because I can see both sides. One somebody coming in guns blazing because they're upset, the stakes are so high, it's their child's life, and then somebody else saying, "I've seen this before," and it's how can we meet in the middle? And I think the safe spot is like you're human to human.
Yes.
And take away the titles of both mom and doctor and human to human, how can you connect together?
It,
So I love this, like, ask the doctor or the nurse about their family or their child, like just something to connect you to one another. And I think as
it's
a child
true.
life specialist, it's like that's what we do. I'm getting down there and I'm playing and I'm like, what's your favorite color? And people want to know what's the magic of child life. And I'm like, no, we're just together as humans. And I think that's the
Yes.
magic.
Yes, it's a relationship, right? We're building relationships and we want to build relationships with our care team. And that means mutual respect. It's built on mutual respect. We want to be allies, not adversaries. So we need to come in
Yeah.
that way as a team player.
Mm. Well, you're beautiful inside and out. I'm so
Thank
grateful for
you.
our time today. Where can people follow along with you? Get your book, tell us the name, when can we order it, all that good stuff.
Yes, thank you so much for asking. Everything is at raremamas.com. There you'll find my book, and it's available. The book is available now everywhere books are sold: Amazon, Apple Books, Target, bookshop.org, all the places, Barnes and Noble. And all the information is at the website.
Well, congratulations. Such a huge accomplishment. Not only just to be an amazing mom, but to write a book in the service of others. So thank you.
Thank you so much for what you do. And I'm so grateful for the time together today. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thanks for having me.
Yes, me too, Nikki. Was there any other story or anecdote or seed that you wanted to plant before I stop the recording here or anything else?
Sure. If I can plant a seed of hope, I will always plant a seed of hope. Our
Okay, plant the seed of
story,
hope.
yes, let me thank you. Thank you for allowing
Yes.
me to. I will say our story has been a story of hope. We were the family that received that diagnosis, no treatment, no cure, progression inevitable. And yet our story has turned out much differently than we expected. My son was involved in a clinical trial that would be on to become the first ever FDA approved treatment for SMA, and so we have to keep hope alive. We're often, as families, we are given a lot of reasons to forego hope, but that doesn't mean we should. We just have to keep our eyes open and our options open, and hope can just open up our hearts to chase down other avenues. And that's what we need to do for our child. Just keep your hearts open to hope.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you got to share that. Oh, you're amazing. Oh, I can't
Thank
wait to
you.
be friends. Okay, let's be friends now.
Let's be friends. We're friends now.
Oh, okay. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording here. For those of you who are joining us today, I am not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I am a child life specialist. And the suggestions and tips and resources that I talk about with parents on this podcast may be great for you and they may not be right for you. So, the most important person you can talk to about getting support is your care team, your doctor who knows your story and your child's story. So, regardless of maybe what I mention or what other families mention here, we're not licensed therapists, we're not doctors. We're having a conversation about what the parenting journey has been like. So please keep that in mind as you listen today.